41 years in prison for making my students eat cupcakes with my husband's semen. Is my sentence deserved? Likes and subscribes. You'll find out how I managed to pull off this madness. I'm Cynthia Perkins, a 35-year-old fat freak who had the brilliant idea of getting my husband to put his semen in the preparation of our cupcakes. Dennis, my man, 44 and just as vicious as me, thought my idea was a good one and went for it. He finished his business in third-party custard and made them special. To spice up their day a little, I told my dear students that the game was to find the secret ingredient. Of course, we thought of our own daughter and saved one of Daddy's cream cupcakes for her. As children fell ill, our little game was not without consequences. Suspicions arose, and we found ourselves facing more than 50 charges considered sex crimes. So what did you think? Do you think the sentence is deserved for a simple recipe? I look forward to your comments.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. Babies bounce. Their bones are so soft that instead of thudding, they actually bounce a little. An Arizona man named Paul Menchaca was arrested after he faked having Down syndrome and hired female caregivers to bathe him and change his dirty diapers. Kids under 5 years old will often try to hide from a fire instead of running, and firefighters find the bodies. Jacqueline Durand was hired to dog sit for a pit bull and German shepherd and was told that they would be in their kennels. However, when she arrived, the dogs immediately attacked her, leaving her with over 800 bite marks and severe blood loss. In 2019, filmmakers hired 3 young-looking actresses to pose as 12-year-old girls for a documentary about online predators. Over the next 10 days, they received a combined 2,458 messages from sexual predators. Sarcasm is actually illegal in North Korea. In 2007, a woman died after drinking a little over a gallon of water in 3 hours. And she did it in order to win a Wii.
Okay, all jokes aside, Appalachia really does have the scariest shit. Like, did you know there's a plot of land in Appalachia that is so haunted? They have a plaque commemorating getting rid of the demon. And I only know about it because I did so much research for this week's episode, but I literally can't sleep now. So this ill-proportioned man is Adam Livingston. In the 1700s, he was tormented by a poltergeist in his home after he buried a stranger in an unmarked grave on his property. I mean, what did you think was going to happen? Legend has it that one night in West Virginia, a traveling stranger came to Adam's place and told him that he was dying. He asked for a priest to be fetched for his last rites, but Adam wouldn't go get one. AKA, his wife was like, please don't leave me alone with this man. So the stranger died, but Adam didn't even know his name, so he just buried him in an unmarked grave in the back of his yard and got back to work. And that's when it just went full conjuring in his home. He came outside to see that his chickens had randomly been beheaded. Adam said at night it sounded like there was a horse upstairs, like that's how loud the stomping was. But one night Adam has a dream, and in the dream he thinks he sees the man that can help him. And the haunting stopped after he went and got this man, who ended up being a Catholic priest like the stranger wanted. They blessed the grave, and if you visit you can see where they marked his burial site. For more Appalachian horror, check out this week's episode.
Blood-curdling facts that you wish you never knew. In 2018, 2 daycare workers were charged after a video surfaced of them running an underground toddler fight club. The women instructed at least 6 children to have full-on fistfights. The most isolated place on the planet is a little dot in the Pacific Ocean called Point Nemo. It's the furthest spot from any kind of land, and the closest civilization is 1,000 miles away. If you want to sell your organs on the dark web, you'll get the most money for your small intestine, worth about $800,000. This sketch shows the autopsy report of Kobe Bryant after he died in a helicopter crash in 2020. If you look closely, you can see they noted a crown tattoo on Kobe's shoulder. Makes the whole thing a lot more real. A woman once carried around a mummified baby in her womb for 46 years straight because she was scared of getting a C-section. This 3D rendering shows what biblically accurate angels look like, and it is absolutely horrifying. When whales grow old and reach a certain age, they become too weak to swim back to the surface for air, so they suffocate to death and sink slowly to the bottom of the ocean.
Imagine finding out that your ex was trying to pay to have you killed. 42-year-old Tatiana Remley from California is accused of trying to have her estranged husband killed. The pair actually got married in 2011 and are said to have had a turbulent relationship involving splitting up and getting back together several times. It's alleged that the woman tried on multiple occasions to hire hitmen to kill Mark Remley and ended up meeting up with an undercover police officer last month. The police began an investigation into suspicious activity when there was a house fire at the ranch that belonged to her and her husband Mark. Mark claims that his ex intentionally started the fire after he found out that she was planning to kill him in early July. She states that although she was there at the ranch at the time of the fire with a friend, she does not know how the fire started. Mark was told by a mutual friend that Tatiana approached him and offered him $2 million to kill Mark. This prompted officers to set up a sting operation. In a meet-up at a Starbucks with an undercover officer that Tatiana believed to be a hitman, she allegedly, quote, provided detailed information on how she wanted her husband killed and his body disposed of. She's currently being held in jail and is charged with solicitation of murder and 2 weapons charges, and she's pleading not guilty. The husband who posted about his missing wife on Facebook is now charged with her murder. Matthew Perry had posted about his missing wife on Facebook. 20-year-old Avriel Hooks had last been seen by her family on the 22nd of August. She was reported missing the following day. The pair actually have a 5-month-old son together. It's believed that prior to her going missing, the couple had split. Matthew posted on Facebook, "If you know how much I love my wife and son, you would understand how hurt I am. I'm constantly searching and looking everywhere for my wife. I'm not okay. This is the mother of my child. I'm lost." He also posted, "My wife is missing. I'm not okay, yo. The police questioned me for 5 hours and held me for 12. I need any information you can give. I'm a husband and a father. She's my wife and the mother of my child. We miss her." Police had become suspicious of Matthew when, during his wife being missing, he suddenly stopped communicating with her family. Avriel's mum, Ashley, received a text from her daughter's phone the day she went missing. However, Ashley does not believe that this text was of her daughter. The text said that she needed some me time and she was at a friend's house, which Ashley stated is just not the way she normally talks. On August the 29th, tragically a body was found in a wooded area. This has been identified as the missing woman and a cause of death is not currently known. Matthew has been arrested on charges of second-degree murder and unlawful disposal of a dead body.
Comic book writer Gerard Jones is a convicted pedophile. And this is going to rain on a lot of people's parades. A lot of people don't know about this, but let's talk about it. So early in his writing and drawing career, Gerard worked for the company National Lampoon. And as he worked his way through the industry from 1987 to 2001, he wrote for a number of massive companies. These companies included Marvel Comics, DC Comics, Dark Horse Comics, and he worked on series like Pokemon, The Green Lantern, Justice League, Batman, just so many classic stories. You can even see right here, G. Jones, he's credited on a lot of these issues. So things look to be going really well for Gerard in his life. He was a very well-renowned comic writer. But then in 2016, he was arrested for some pretty disturbing things. In 2016, he was arrested for distributing and possessing CP. And at first, he pled not guilty. He said, "I didn't do it." But then in 2018, a couple years later, he pled guilty. He admitted to it. And in his admission, he made some very, very disturbing statements. Basically, the authorities stated that they had found multiple electronic devices inside of Gerard's home, and that those devices contained tens of thousands of images and videos depicting CP. Tens of thousands, terabytes of this disgusting content. So he was sentenced to a measly 6 years in prison for the possession of all of this filth. And sadly, as of December 2022, Gerard Jones is free. He's no longer in prison. He's out in the free world again. I hate having to ruin people's days by talking about this stuff, but I mean, if I wasn't suggested this story by people online who watch my TikTok videos, I never would have known this about this guy. And I think it's important that we keep talking about these issues, because if we just silently let people commit these crimes like this, then they will continue to happen.
Stewie. Yeah? It's not your fault. What? It's not your fault. I know. It's not your fault. I know.
The woman you just saw in that video, Sarah Stewart, and her husband Christopher Stewart have been arrested, and they are facing charges after their 6-year-old son died from a Benadryl overdose. So on social media, Sarah seems like the happiest, nicest mom around. She has tons of videos on her page, which is still up, by the way, And if you were to look at her page and scroll back a little bit, she would seem completely normal. Well, until she started posting these weird, sad, cryptic posts a few months ago. Posts like this one. Well, as it turns out, on October 30th, 2022, the day before Halloween, the police were called to their home. They claimed at the time that their 6-year-old son had fell off of a recliner, hit his head on a hard floor, and suffered an immediate seizure. That day, their child was transported to the hospital. He survived and held on a little bit longer, but he died later that night. When a search warrant was served on the couple's home, though, they discovered some disturbing things. Apparently, the family and the child were living in filthy conditions, and there had been past child abuse allegations against the parents. An autopsy of their son even showed that there were bruises on his body that were still healing at the time of his death. And the autopsy also revealed something disturbing. Their son hadn't died from falling and hitting his head on the floor. He died from a Benadryl overdose, which, if you know anything about Benadryl, is extremely hard to do. The authorities even said that their son had enough Benadryl in his body to kill a full-grown man. And after their arrest, the parents even said that they would give their son Benadryl if he was being hyperactive. It's just crazy to go on her page and see the post that she made before she was arrested. It's a crazy, crazy story. And hopefully there are some serious sentences handed out here. I know Sarah has been charged with homicide. Her husband has been charged with child neglect, but this is just a tragic story for everybody involved.
The gang accidentally took my life. Hi. My name is Leandro Guzman Feliz, and I used to live in Bronx, United States. On the 20th of June 2018, around 11:30 p.m., I informed Mom I was going out to meet a friend and lend him some money. However, while I was out, I noticed 4 vehicles which immediately alarmed me. I began to run, being chased relentlessly by gang members for 4 entire blocks. Seeking refuge, I ran into a grocery store, and when the store owner saw how scared I was, he let me hide behind the counter. Regrettably, the gang members discovered my hiding place and forcefully dragged me outside, where others were waiting. They stabbed me brutally with knives and machetes, but when they trusted a large knife through my throat, surviving became a struggle. Despite my desperate efforts to save myself, I managed to flee the grocery store and headed toward the hospital. Tragically, I collapsed on a step near the hospital's entrance, just a few yards away, and I sadly passed away. The leader of the Trinitario gang later stated on Snapchat that my killing was a case of mistaken identity. The incident was triggered by an assault video involving a gang member's niece and curly-haired male teenager whom the gang members were seeking to locate and instructed to kill. It was later revealed that the video was a prank. Unfortunately, the gang members mistakenly believed that I was the teenager in the video, even though I had no association with any gang. They also wrongly thought I belonged to their rival gang called Sunset. The gang members have since expressed remorse for my death. The gang members also apologized for killing me. In total, there were 14 individuals involved in my murder. 5 of them have already been sentenced, receiving punishments ranging from life imprisonment to terms of 12 and 25 years. 9 others are still awaiting trial. My mother believed I was going for a normal innocent meeting with my friend. Little did she expect that my life would be unintentionally taken away, leaving my parents devastated and forever robbed of the chance to see me again.
If you hear a knock at the door and open it to see this, slam the door shut and hide immediately. Now, it was close to midnight when the doorbell rang. I peered out the window, but I couldn't see anyone. And when I opened the front door, 2 kids were standing there, a boy and a girl about 10 years old. "Can we come inside and use your phone?" the boy asked. "We're locked out." And I started to say okay. When both kids looked up at me, their eyes were pitch black. No iris, just giant pupils. Dark voids that seemed to suck me in. And a knot formed in my stomach. "Please," the girl begged as they stepped towards the door. "We won't hurt you." Adrenaline flooded my veins, and I slammed the door and locked it, and then scratching sounds came from outside as I ran to hide. Because I know that people who let the black-eyed kids inside are never seen again. If you see this car behind you, get to the nearest police station immediately. Jenny was driving home after a late-night shift when a powder blue sedan zoomed up behind her bumper. She gripped the steering wheel, unnerved as it tailgated her down the empty highway. And then when she changed lanes to exit, the sedan followed her. She sped up, but it stayed right on her, flashing its high beams. Jenny's heart pounded. Who was this creep, and why wouldn't they leave her alone? She blew through stop signs, but the car kept pace, just inches behind. Finally, Jenny pulled into a police station lot. The sedan sat idling, then slowly pulled away into the night. Catching her breath, Jenny noticed that the seat was empty. Have you ever heard of the hook? It was a dark, foggy night when 17-year-old Melissa and her boyfriend Kevin parked his car on a secluded lane. They were listening to music and talking when a strange noise outside made them jump. Tap, tap, scratch. Something was moving in the shadows of the trees. Kevin shifted nervously and turned up the radio to calm their nerves. As the music drowned out the sound, Melissa felt fingers brush her hair. She screamed and Kevin hit the gas. Speeding down the winding road, they noticed a white pickup truck tailing them. Kevin sped up, but it stayed right behind them. Finally, they reached Melissa's neighborhood and the truck veered off down another street. Shaking, they climbed out and Melissa gasped when she saw a bloody hook dangling from the handle on the passenger side door. The next morning, a news report said a convicted killer with a hook for a hand had escaped from the psychiatric hospital nearby. Have you ever heard of Slender Man? As a photographer, I've always loved exploring abandoned places. Last week, I decided to check out this old warehouse on the edge of town that's been empty for decades. The minute I stepped inside, I felt like I was being watched. Still, I snapped the shots of a dust-filled room. When I got home and I uploaded the photos, my blood ran cold. There, reflected in a mirror, was an impossibly tall, pale figure with long arms and no face. I zoomed in, hands trembling. Some kind of faceless man, at least 8 feet tall, was lurking behind me. Frantically researching, I learned about Slender Man, a supernatural being who stalks his victims. He was created online a few years ago, yet already there was accounts of him terrorizing people. I couldn't sleep that night, imagining his tentacles reaching for me. The next day, I drove back, desperate to prove Slender Man was real. The warehouse was burned to the ground, nothing left but ashes.
They believe that was her wedding ring that he took out of the car.
What's that? Nothing on there. You just have my camera. Is this on continually recording?
I get cars driving from this street, and this is him at 517.
It shows Chris very clearly walking out of the house by himself, backing his truck up into the driveway, and then loading something into the back of his truck.
What Chris Watts does is very purposeful. He goes into the garage, he walks out, he's got a gas can. He goes to put it on one side of the truck, and then he thinks twice, goes, well, I can't really put it there, but you can see him kind of moving, like apparently there's not room for it there. That wasn't going to fit. Let's go around to the other side. Oh, okay, now it'll fit, obviously, between the 3 dead bodies.
We usually park out there on the side. I just want to get everything back in. Be easier, so lugging everything out there, all the tools that I had to bring in.
Suddenly, this guy who had few words has a lot to say. He has an explanation for everything.
Then Chris started to fall apart a bit.
Chris Watts can barely watch it, right? So what happens when you arrest somebody? Get down on the ground, put your hands on your head. So he puts his hands on his head even though he wasn't told. But that was a surrendering moment.
That's almost as if Chris was verbally saying, Oh my gosh, I was not expecting this.
And you see him pacing and moving, nervous and anxious. Chris Watts' body language is betraying him.
So right now, police don't have probable cause to be able to arrest him because it still isn't clear where Shanann, Bella, and Cece went. They're never seen leaving the house.
Appreciate your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks. Hopefully something comes up here. I've never seen him. If he loads his stuff, he normally just walks back and forth because I get him on camera. But the fact that he was in here and explaining to it over and over and over, well, but he doesn't look worried. He looks like he's trying to cover his tracks.
What? Look at that, mate. Look at that. What? Look at that.
Home movies capture the vibrant spirit of a young teenage girl.
So where are you going today?
I'm going to Children's Mercy Hospital to see my dentist for my teeth.
Full of enthusiasm and effervescence, but behind the smiles, life for Gypsy Blanchard and her mother Dee Dee is one replete with hardships and challenges. Gypsy is in a wheelchair.
They were local darlings. I mean, they were the shining star in this town of people who can outlast adversity and get through everything.
The mother-daughter duo are local celebrities, the subject of countless local news profiles and articles.
Gypsy and her multiple illnesses and diseases, leukemia, muscular dystrophy. She had learning disabilities, had not been able to be out of a wheelchair since she was 5 years old. And so the community really embraced them.
Dee Dee's originally from Louisiana, a one-time beauty queen.
Military Queen, Miss Claudina P.
And nurse's aide. She marries Rod Blanchard at age 24. Together, the couple welcomes a beautiful baby girl.
Perfectly healthy, pretty little baby. Named her Gypsy Rose. I was excited and very scared. I'm not gonna lie, I was scared. I'm 18 years old and I got a baby here, so.
But she was beautiful and perfectly healthy.
Yeah, she was. Nothing wrong with her. She looked perfect.
I see you. You want to blow me a kiss? Very good.
But the relationship was far from perfect, and the couple broke up.
Not long after, Dee Dee was saying that she was sick, problems sleeping, epilepsy, and it just progressed from there. Leukemia, paralyzed, muscular dystrophy, and she would have seizures. Gypsy was probably 7, 8 years old. She's in a wheelchair now, she needs a feeding tube.
Was Dee Dee a good mother?
I told Dee Dee she was the best mother. There's no way I can do what you're doing. You have a sick child, it's constantly 24/7 taking care of her and everything. I mean, I always praised her and told her, good job.
Rod and his new wife, Christy, would have sporadic visits with Gypsy, but they are never alone.
You know, all the visits, Dee Dee had to be there the whole time. Something never felt right about it. Just Dee Dee was so controlling of her.
This is the last photo taken of Rod with his daughter before fate would seemingly deal Gypsy and Dee Dee another cruel blow, leaving the pair displaced and depleted by Hurricane Katrina in 2005.
In some areas, the water is now 20 feet deep.
Their home ravaged by the storm and floodwaters. They took refuge at this nearby special needs shelter.
I've learned from Dee Dee was that they were homeless, no place to go. So Mercy Hospital loaded them up on the helicopter and flew them up.
These kids who looked up to you and expected you to be their daddy, like, that's the ultimate betrayal of trust.
You know, the Watts family spoke, and of course they're devastated as much as the Ruseks are.
It was their intention to introduce themselves as grandparents who had suffered an extraordinary loss, and that they were in as much a shock as anyone, and maybe more so.
Our families have been irreparably broken by the needless deaths of Shanann, Bella, Cece, and Nico. This is something we will never get over. We will always mourn the loss of our family, and in that, we are united in our grief. Now to my son, Christopher. I have known you since the day you were born into this world. I have watched you grow from a quiet and sweet, curious child who Bella reminded me so much of, to a young man who worked hard in sports and later mechanics to achieve your goals. You are a good friend, brother, father, and son. We have loved you from the beginning, and we still love you now. Your father and sister and I are struggling to understand why, but we will remain faithful as your family. We love you, and we forgive you, son.
The room was not what I had experienced in a courtroom before. It was one of just sadness.
Two families who have been absolutely destroyed by the actions of this man.
Everyone was grieving in that room.
Good morning, Your Honor. Mr. Watts has asked us to share this morning that he is devastated by all of this. And although he understands that words are hollow at this point, he is sincerely sorry for all of this. Thank you.
I've been a judicial officer now for starting my 17th year, and I could objectively say that this is perhaps the most inhumane and vicious crime that I have handled out of the thousands of cases that I have seen.
Before a judge, Chris Watts pleads guilty to the murder of Bella, Shanann, and Celeste, and also an unlawful termination of a pregnancy, that being his first son, Nico.
Deputies, I would respectfully ask that you take this defendant into custody and have him serve the rest of his life in the Department of Corrections.
After Christopher Watts was sentenced, there was closure. There was a sense of relief and sadness and disbelief that it could happen in such a small town.
I don't know if anyone felt that justice had been served.
I don't have grace for him. That's one of the worst betrayals a human can do, is the betrayal of a father to a daughter. So no, I don't selfishly think that he got justice, but I'm grateful that I'm not the judge.
After Chris went to prison, we thought we would never hear from him again, but it was actually only just beginning.
On what happened to 14-year-old Alicia Navarro and how she left this note saying she would return but hasn't come back yet. Jessica finds this note in Alicia's bedroom and she says that it seems like her daughter wrote this in a hurry. Normally Alicia had very pretty handwriting, but this handwriting looked a little bit messy. So after finding the note and finding the two chairs leaned against a brick wall, Jessica assumed that her daughter had snuck out of the house and had used the chairs to climb over the wall. Normally this gate was unlocked, but she figures that maybe Alicia thought that the gate would make too much noise, and that's why she decided to just climb over the wall. As soon as she realized that her daughter Alicia was missing, she called the Glendale Police Department and reported her daughter as missing. Police immediately arrived to the scene and they started going through Alicia's bedroom to see if they could find any type of evidence. They discovered that Alicia had taken her laptop, her comic books, her cell phone, and body sprays. Along with that, she had also taken a small backpack adorned with metallic cat ears. What they thought was odd is that Alicia didn't take any of her cell phone or laptop chargers. So it honestly seemed like she did plan on returning home since she didn't take any of her chargers with her or any of her clothes. They tried to track her cell phone to see if they could figure out where it would last ping, but her cell phone had been turned off since the morning she disappeared. She also didn't take any of her medication with her, and Jessica says that she needs this medication. So all of these things combined together again made police and the family believe that Alicia truly wanted to return. They started looking at the evidence found outside of the house and they saw that there were some footprints leading from the backyard to the front yard. Well, they checked those footprints and they confirmed that those were Alicia Navarro's footprints. They also checked the neighbor surveillance cameras, but they did not capture Alicia leaving. The FBI joined the case about 2 weeks later and they went through all of Alicia's internet history, her gaming history, everything to see if that could help with the investigation. They discovered that 11 days before her disappearance, she had messaged a 20-year-old man named Clark through Discord. In these messages, Alicia told Clark that she had sold her Xbox, which she really loved because she loved to game, and that she had a boyfriend. But she didn't give any specific details about who this boyfriend was. Police looked into Clark, they looked through all of his history, and they ended up clearing him. He says that him and Alicia were part of the same online gaming group, and he also found it odd that Alicia would run away from home. Because again, she was very shy and timid. Jessica and the rest of the family started to believe that Alicia had been lured by an online predator. The reason for that is because, again, Alicia spent the majority of her time online. There was one incident that Jessica had caught Alicia giving personal information to a man online. As soon as she saw that happen, she sat Alicia down and told her about the dangers of speaking to strangers and that she shouldn't share these details with anyone. And there was another incident where Jessica actually filed a police report with the Arizona Police Department because Alicia was speaking to a man online that was much older than her. This man was asking Alicia questions such as, "Do you have any stuffed animals?" He also said, "Well, if you don't have any stuffed animals, I can be your stuffed animal." It was just a very inappropriate conversation, so she reported it to the police, but they didn't really do much about it. And one day Jessica noticed that there was a hole about the size of a golf ball in Alicia's window. Okay, more in part 3.